Russia's relentless shelling continues to take a heavy toll on life and buildings in eastern Ukraine, in this case in the city of Kharkiv. Wednesday saw casualties on both sides as Moscow intensified its push to take control of the whole Donbass region. The Ukrainian military says it rebuffed some advances, as shelling killed at least 8 civilians and wounded a further 25. Pro-Russian separatists say Ukrainian attacks have killed 4 civilians on their side. A spokesman for Russia's Ministry of Defense claimed air-launched high-precision missiles hit 2 US-made rocket systems and their warehouses in Kharkiv and Donetsk. In Donbass, the artillery battle has been going on for months. Ukrainian troops are having to rely on armoured weapons developed during the Soviet Union era. Many of those fighting are not career soldiers. At first the fighting was hard, but now we're used to it. My home is quite close. In the beginning it was difficult to understand that there was a war going on in my own hometown. The most important thing is that morale remains high and that we don't underestimate ourselves. Everything will go well. Ukraine will win. In Kyiv, Irish Prime Minister Micheál Martin met President Volodymyr Zelensky. The Ukrainian leader has said that the artillery delivered as part of Western military aid to the beleaguered nation is working very powerfully and delivering noticeable blows in Russian-occupied areas.
The Suwałki Gap along the Polish-Lithuanian border is currently considered one of the most dangerous places in the world. Some analysts say that if the Russian war escalates, it will develop there, connecting the Kaliningrad Oblast and Belarus, in effect, cutting off 3 Baltic countries from their western allies. The local population is certainly concerned about this possibility.
Ta sytuacja, która się teraz rozwija na Ukrainie,
this situation that's developing in Ukraine has prompted people to start thinking about how to defend themselves. There's more interest. Nobody's going to dig trenches and wait for something to fall down. We observe, helicopters fly, military vehicles pass by, we go on working. If we're forced, then we'll probably have to defend ourselves. I hope this doesn't happen, but the more people who know how to do it, maybe they'll at least feel mentally better, so they're not so alone. Better to be prepared for the worst than not to be prepared.
Lepiej być przygotowanym na najgorsze niż nie być przygotowanym.
Local politicians, on the other hand, fear that speculation around the future and the security of the region will only cause harm.
To zagrożenie, o którym mówimy, jest tylko hipotetyczne.
The threat we're talking about is only hypothetical, and we want it to stay that way. This situation will have a negative impact on the perception of the region as good for investment. Unfortunately, there'll be fewer tourists this summer. We don't want panic. We're also under the protection of the Polish army and NATO allied troops, which are stationed not so far away from the Suwałki Gap. And in the event of conflict, I think that our army, with our allies, would be able to repel any attack.
Jakiegoś konfliktu, to myślę, że nasza armia z sojusznikami jest w stanie odeprzeć ten atak.
Experts do not rule out a possible attack, although they underline that a new military operation would be difficult.
Since many years, it was seen as the weakest point when it comes to eastern flank. We cannot exclude any scenarios, but I think it will be very difficult for Russia to be at the same time involved in the two fronts, especially when it comes to involvement according to the NATO side. It is a low probability.
The eastern borders of Poland, which are also the borders of the European Union, are struggling with the problems coming from the country's eastern neighbors. Aside from war in Ukraine and the migration crisis, there is now a threat of an attack that would start an open war between Russia and NATO. Magdalena Hodownik for Euronews from Warsaw.